I'm very pleased that the Ambassador of the European Union to the United States has joined us today. She has got a very busy schedule. She drove up this morning from DC in a record time of like 3.5 hours, I was told. I can't quite believe it, but you know, that is what I was told. So it's a pleasure, Jovita, to have you here. I was told you are here in North Carolina for the second time, only for the first time to the Krasno series. So you have to come back a second time for the Krasno series. And I want to announce it in public. Jovita just promised to me she would be back to the Krasno series in the future. So now it's public. So it's a great pleasure to have you here. And it is a greater pleasure almost greater pleasure that Phil Rieker can introduce the Ambassador of the EU. After that introduction, the Ambassador and I will have a fireside chat, and then we will take questions from the audience. So please prepare your questions already. I know Jovita has a reputation of being very frank in her answers, and she will do that today as well, and not be too diplomatic, but be honest and frank. So, please, Phil, come and sit.
Thanks, Klaus, and another opportunity to thank you and Krasno and the university, the students, all of the faculty, all of the speakers and partners. It's been a great day so far, and it continues to move on. I'm really delighted to be here, and particularly delighted to introduce our keynote speaker this afternoon. I think everybody already met Ambassador Varvalis, and you'll recall I mentioned what a role Lithuania is taking, both on the EU level, at the NATO level, and of course as a country itself on the front line of the Russian threat. So we have not one but two Lithuanian ambassadors here today. It's really such a pleasure to introduce Jovita Neliupšienė, who is the European Union's ambassador to the United States of America. She took up the post January 1st, 2024, at a moment when the transatlantic relationship was and is being tested and renewed at the same time. And she brings to Washington a remarkable combination of intellectual depth, political experience, practical crisis management. She is a career Lithuanian diplomat, and we love career diplomats. She served as Lithuania's ambassador and permanent representative to the European Union, guiding her country through the migration crisis, through the COVID-19 pandemic. She went on to serve as Vice Minister of Economy and Innovation, a crucial theme in today's discussions, and then as Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, responsible for European affairs, which is when I think we first were engaging together on a number of issues. She covered regional diplomacy, and she coordinated national sanctions policy. That's all work that sits right at the heart of our collective response to Russia and their aggression against Ukraine, and to the wider challenges to the rules-based international order that we've built since World War II. Very quickly, earlier in her career, she was Chief Foreign Policy Advisor to the President of Lithuania, and played a leading role in preparing and coordinating Lithuania's presidency of the EU Council back in 2013. And that experience, of course, gave her a unique vantage point on how Brussels, member states, and partners like the US actually make decisions together. In my role, when I was leading the European Bureau as Assistant Secretary at the State Department, I had 50 countries to deal with, plus multilateral institutions like NATO and the European Union and the OSCE. The EU ambassador has 27 member states to deal with, the European Commission, the European Council, the European Parliament, not to mention the United States federal government, the Congress, 50 US states, including North Carolina. It's a really a crucial role in the transatlantic partnership in terms of helping us adapt to a war on Europe's borders, renewed great power competition, disruptive technologies, political polarization on both sides of the Atlantic. All of these things we've talked about today, and I'm sure we'll hear more. We could hardly have a better guide than someone who has sat at the table in Vilnius, in Brussels, and now in Washington. So please join me in welcoming my friend, colleague, and the European Union's ambassador to the United States of America, Ambassador Jovita Neliupšienė. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil, for such a kind words, and I always feel humbled. And thanks for mentioning that I'm a career diplomat. I really think that it's extremely important, and important probably because we are not only among esteemed faculty members, but as well have students in the audience. And I have to admit, I haven't dreamed about becoming a diplomat, but you know, you never close the doors when you have an opportunity to open. And I just lost my sight on Klaus, but well, first of all, thanks Klaus for bringing all of us here, and including me. Your work bridges the world's academia and policy, which is a very valuable skill again for students to note. And it's an honor to be here in the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Over the years, the EU delegation has recruited many UNC graduates, and we have a lot of them actually working as interns in the delegation. And I think this is what makes the link very strong. I became an ambassador less than 2 years ago, and this is my second visit to North Carolina, where here in North Carolina, EU investments exceeds 84 billion, supporting 141,000 jobs. And North Carolina exports to the 27 EU member states more than 11 billion annually. And of course, these numbers speaks a lot about the importance of our relations and importance of EU-North Carolina relations. I hope we can delve into the really into depth of discussing the nitty-gritties. But today's discussion on Western relations with Russia, I will reflect on the changing nature of transatlantic relations. You already heard, and I heard part of the conversations here on the stage, that sometimes we have EU-US relations which are kind of a smooth and seamless. And we even sometimes forget that we have to nurture those relations. Sometimes we're in times where the opinions actually start diverging. And I would say that what actually matters from my experience working not only here in DC, in the United States, but what matters from the Brussels perspective or matters from the member state perspective is the amount of effort we actually put in making sure those relations, the transatlantic relation works, not only when it's easy, but when it's a bit more complicated to talk about. Today, power is more contested, technology is more disruptive, and in this context, EU is doing its part of the job and striving to become more capable geopolitical actor. And well, I would focus on 3 points. How our security partnership is being written by Russian aggression and NATO's evolving posture, how Europe is redefining burden sharing through the bold investments in defense capabilities, and how our trade ties are adapting to an age of strategic competition. So first of all, we cannot speak about security in Europe without speaking about Ukraine. Our priority remains clear: to support Ukraine in every possible way. Russia's aggression is an existential threat to all of us, one that is transforming the EU from the peace project to the more capable geopolitical actor. The EU stands united with Ukraine as its largest global donor. We have mobilized over $186 billion in aid. We have trained more than 80,000 Ukrainian soldiers. We welcomed 4 million Ukrainian refugees and provided 2 million rounds of artillery ammunition only this year. We started from 40,000. European funding is keeping hospitals, schools, and local institutions running. And the human cost must end. Every Ukrainian children abducted by Russia must be returned to their families. And let me be clear, whatever Russia is doing in Ukraine, with Ukraine or around Ukraine, will not actually stop or waver EU support. Yes, the war is back on the European continent, but it's equally vital for the US to remain engaged. Supporting Ukraine's sovereignty protects global stability, a foundation for American economic prosperity in an interconnected world. It also safeguards US national security by deterring broader conflicts. Unified pressure from the EU and the US makes a difference. By staying engaged, US not only reinforces its global leadership, but also positioning itself for opportunities in Ukraine reconstruction. In a changing world, the urgency of EU-US cooperation and coordination has never been greater, because Russia is not acting alone. China now supplies nearly 80% of Russia's dual-use imports, many powering its military aggression. This alignment challenges both EU and US interest, which in turn has deepened our cooperation and should deepen even more. Therefore, we have phased out Russian energy and expanding our LNG partnerships. EU energy ministers have agreed to end remaining gas imports from Russia, with a full ban taking effect in January 2027. Both the EU and US continue to impose sanctions, and the EU recently deployed its 19th sanction package. Second, peace without defense is an illusion. In the changing world of strategic competition, where dependencies are weaponized, the European Union is acting to boost its defense capabilities. Today, the big European money is finally flowing into European defense. We're deepening NATO contributions by launching a nearly $1 trillion defense industry strategy. In 2024, EU defense spending hit $365 billion, which is 19% increase comparing to previous year. And this increase is actually growing by every day. In 3 years, we are supposed to reach 1 trillion. EU or European part of NATO alliance, if you wish, will become the biggest defense spender globally. And this is not because we are warmongers, not because we want to have the war at our borders, and not because we want to have a war in Europe. It's because we are experiencing existential threat. This represents actually historic change, transformational shift in Europe's capacity to defend itself and to contribute to global security. Our ability to support Ukraine will also shape China's strategic calculation in Indo-Pacific. The stakes extend far beyond Europe's borders. Today, geopolitical power rests on two pillars: military might and economic force. Soft power alone no longer suffices in a world where hard power too often decides the outcome. The EU has long been an economic powerhouse and trading bloc, but our collective military weight has lagged behind. That is now changing. Strengthening Europe's defense serves both our continent and the United States, because we face shared threats, not seen since the Cold War. Europe has made its choice. We are scaling up and speeding up all at once. In response to Russia's aggression, we have launched the most ambitious defense efforts in modern European history. And we are not doing that alone. Friends and allies like United States, United Kingdom are participants in this effort through programs such as European Defence Funds or newly established SAFE. Our shared goal is a strong, innovative, and competitive transatlantic industrial base that underpins lasting peace. Third, if we want to defend Ukraine and invest in our security, we need strong, innovative economy. To achieve that, a stable and predictable trade relationship with United States is crucial. That's why we reached an agreement with our American partners to establish a framework for trade and investment. The EU exports over $580 billion in goods to the United States every year, supporting millions of jobs here. Together, we form most valuable economic partnership in the world, worth of $1.8 trillion a year. Over the past decade, our trade has doubled. Every single day, we trade more than $4.8 billion in goods and services across the Atlantic. We have identified the automotive, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, lumber industries as critical industries, and we continue talking through our differences. And over the half of the Europe's LNG energy imports now comes from the US. Across the US, EU ranks among top 3 export markets in 46 states of the United States. Every day, we choose cooperation, working together with Americans to reindustrialize and build economic resilience. At the same time, EU remains the largest trading partner for 72 countries around the world. The EU transformation is also about building resilience, addressing non-market policies, securing supply chains, strengthening our technological base. You will see more strategic use of our investment screening and export control tools in the months ahead. Beyond trade and economic security, we are investing in Europe's future by simplifying rules for startups, buying AI factories across, building AI factories across the continent and unlocking new sources of financing. In short, the EU is future-proofing its economy. We are turning waste into resources, creating jobs, ensuring that prosperity endures our next generation. American partners we like you to be at the heart of this story or at the heart of this journey. Let me conclude. Whether confronting Russia's aggression or advancing frontiers of technology, we are always stronger together. People-to-people connection remains the true foundation of the EU-US relations. That's why I deeply value partnerships at the state and local level. Here in North Carolina, there are countless reasons to stay engaged across the colleges, campuses, business community, civic life. I travel often to state capitals to meet legislators and businessmen and students. And I think that everywhere I go, actually, sometimes quite differently from the DC, I see and I feel the interest and the need to build those transatlantic bridges. So let's let our changing partnership be not only the legacy, but be a foundation for the future relations for the foundation of our future together. And well, as always, and we have some historians here who can confirm that you have to write the future yourself, because otherwise others will do that. Thank you.
Not that long ago, President Trump talked about the European Union as a foe in trade relations. Then we saw the NATO agreement, 5%. We saw a tariff agreement, 15% on average.
But so next will be 30.
Okay. But the US is now complaining the EU is not implementing these agreements properly. Is there some truth in that?
Well, I think that so far we had an agreement which includes tariffs, investments, purchasing of LNG, purchasing of semiconductors, and discussions on certain issues of the related with technologies. I have to admit, European Commission submitted all the regulations to the European Parliament to get tariffs for American cars to zero, while our cars will be tariffed by 15%. And on the other hand, it took a few months for American side to implement because they had to legislate as well. But I would say that there is a genuine understanding on both sides that we have to implement those agreements letter by letter. So we have negotiated tariffs across the board. So far, both sides did what it was needed to do in the first parts of the agreement. Hopefully, EU will not be considered as the security threat, so no more 232s. This is the tariffs which is based not on reciprocal regulation, but more on security part of the trade. No more of that is coming, so we can proceed with implementation because we committed to implement 600 billion of investments in the United States, but in order those investments to materialize, we have a very predictable and very clear investment environment. So if the tariffs for the EU as such is not hyping or changing within the time, it's important that the other US trading partners are as well kept on the stable line. So you because the supply chains are so integrated that it's difficult for European companies, for example, especially if they not only get a local content, but use the Mexico or Canada to have the stable relations with those countries. So I would wish everything would be simple and based on bilateral agreements and arrangements, but actually the trade is much more complicated than that. But I would say we are on the very right track of the implementation.
Thanks. The UK got a better deal with Trump than the European Union did. Do you think something went wrong? That was just the way it is.
No, I think we got better deal than UK actually. First of all, we got flat rates for across the board, including the existing or future 232s and 301s, which is extremely important. This is one element. We committed which includes, by the way, pharmaceutical. There we committed to invest, but on the other hand, we committed to review the list of the goods which will be at a zero level of tariffs, at least at the most preferential nation of level of tariffs. So I think that this list is the key in order to make sure that where the most vulnerable dependencies are, that we can actually enrich the list for not only have their 3 or 4 products, but many more.
And you're optimistic that now the relations on the transatlantic basis have stabilized, that there will not be, another volatile turnaround on the part of Trump.
This is what the actually striving for. So I think that we have to put a lot of effort in order to make it true. This is one thing. Another thing is that if you talk anywhere with American business community or European business community, having any kind of the trade relations on both sides of Atlantic, the number one thing they keep repeating all the time: we need predictability, stability, and to clear or clear framework where we act. And I think this is really the core for this, as you call, stabilization of the relations.
Talk to people, everyday people, friends and family in Germany, for example, or in other countries in Europe. There's a general frustration that the Europeans, the EU Commission is kind of easing Trump rather than standing up to him. Would you say this is simply because there's no other choice?
No, I'm not coming next time because I was promised softball questions.
Just among ourselves, you can be quite open and private.
Yeah, of course. When I see the camera in front of it.
We'll edit it out. Just be private.
No, there is freedom of speech in Europe, so you don't need to edit.
and he's somewhere in the world there is.
What was the question? Okay. Look, I think so. In my speech, I mentioned several numbers, and I will not really go and repeat themselves. But first of all, 1.7 or 1.8 trillion of trade, that means that we trade in like everything, in every sector, every state, like 46 states. In 46 states, we are among the 1 to 3 trade partners. In 46 states, we are 1 to 3 major investor. And it does not really mean that the 4 is left like empty. We just may be number 4 in being an export destination or the maybe not the largest investor. So it's massive. There is no the sector where we would not trade. So this is number one thing, and it actually goes both ways. U.S. is the largest trading partner for us. U.S. is the largest investor in the EU. This is one element. Second, I cannot imagine the global security and stability, or in general how the world is run, if the EU or Europeans and Americans are not working together. There is no way we would live in the world as we have, and we would enjoy, the wonderful yards of this university if would not be a global set order which is run by U.S. together with Europeans. The transatlantic relations actually are at the core of the global security. Technology. U.S. is definitely in the lead in many areas, starting from AI, which is the most popular topic, in some ways in semiconductors, in some ways in pharmaceuticals, in some ways in quantum. I can open you a secret, in quantum, Europe is in the lead. In pharmaceuticals, we're, if not on the par, almost in the lead. In semiconductors, you cannot produce semiconductors without European lithography machines. In AI, when we will know actually where is AI going or where it would end, because it's right now everything in the development, there will be a need of the connectivity infrastructure, which is we already face. Do you know who is the major competitor to Huawei at the moment? This is 2 European companies, 2 only European companies, Nokia and Ericsson. That's it. So there is always the choice. I assume people have a choice to have partners and allies, and the world run by partners and allies together, or the alternative. And for Europeans, It's a very clear choice. Maybe, we don't want to be told, or maybe, we would wish to spend time and time again discussing, because, we are coming from tradition of Aristotle. we want to have time to contemplate, but there is no time. And I do understand that sometimes frustration on the US side is quite clear, that Europeans spend too much time on thinking instead of doing. This always was the case. But Europe and Europeans, long time, 8 years ago, made a choice. Where is the allies and where is our strategic interest? All the rest is the questions of this day, maybe this month, this year. But the strategic direction is pretty clear. So this is the choice. It's not an appease.
Let's hope both sides know that. Thank you. Ukraine, you said, you supported Ukraine very strongly. I think most in this room will agree with that. But does Europe have the stamina to really to go on as long as it takes, whatever it takes? Is that really possible?
It's not whatever. It's as long as Ukraine wins. Because I think that we may be sometimes naive, thinking that, this is Ukraine, we have to deal with this case in the isolation from the rest of the world. If we do that, or we kind of talk about it as an isolated case, that we can handle it as an isolated case. But I can tell you, it actually doesn't work like that. 80% of dual-use goods comes from China or through China. So this is the Russia's war in Ukraine would look totally different. We have North Korean soldiers on Russian side, and I can tell you, and of course, the way how the war is conducted, we have some military colleagues from here. The China's eyes are on the lessons to learn, the same as ours probably, hopefully, I hope so. But there is another element in that. Do we still remember what kind of drones Russian side flies? It's Iranian drones. Iranian built a factory in Russia to fly those drones. So even if you want to handle Ukraine in isolation, you cannot. And those guys are actually teaming. So the way to approach is only to have in mind that by solving Ukraine in the right way, we actually may have, or this will have the implication what will be the take of be it China, or be it Iran, or be it any other our adversaries who would see how we handle and if we have stamina. And I will tell you the reason why we will probably have stamina, because those drones fly over, and they don't fly over, as you heard from the panels before, not only above the Vilnius airport, which is in Lithuania, or Tallinn airport, or somewhere in forests of Poland. No. Copenhagen airport was shut down for almost 24 hours. It's 200 miles from Berlin. Brussels airport was shut down for a bit less than 24 hours. It's 250 miles from Paris. So I never thought about Berlin and Paris as the eastern flank. So I think that it actually gives a very clear understanding for everyone in Europe that because of those hybrid threats, the sabotage in the Baltic Sea, in the North Sea, actually is not really the problem of the eastern flank or Baltic countries or Nordic countries. It's the problem for the entire continent, and it is a problem for the NATO allies.
Yeah, thank you. I think I would fully agree with you, and many would, but there are some countries within the European Union, and perhaps among the populations in many countries, who have a more appeasement attitude towards the whole war, Russia-Ukraine. How does the European Commission, how do the Europeans deal with that, so that that doesn't become the majority opinion?
Look, in order to make any decision on the security or defense issues, matters, if you wish, you need unanimity. Because on trade, it's enough a qualified majority. So you get 2/3 and you're good to go. For decision to train Ukrainian soldiers, 80,000 of them, you need unanimity. And we have it. To push 19 sanction packages, you need unanimity. And we have it. This is the 4th year of the war, and we still have it. And I can open you a secret. We actually have a very strange legal system in Europe. You have to extend sanction packages every half a year. And every half a year, it's almost like checking if you still have the support. Every half a year, we have been extending that. Should I say you or tell you that, oh, it's very easy and everything goes like, smooth? No, we have quite tough conversations. And sometimes you have to go and compromise, maybe not to get where you want to get, but at the end of the day, the story is we managed not only to sanction Russian gas and oil, we managed to legislate. So that means that even the sanctions are, let's say there is a peace deal or ceasefire, and the sanctions should be rolled back. To buy Russian gas and oil and nuclear fuel and Russian nuclear technology will be illegal in Europe. Because we are not sanctioning it, we have legislated that it's illegal. And I think it's much more than anyone actually ever expected. And for that, you need to have a really broad political support and political will. And I think that this is where we are checking that and rechecking by day.
Thank you. Let's talk briefly a bit more about China. China is still an important trading and investment partner of many countries in the European Union.
Yes.
And the US, absolutely. And at the same time, we all complain about overcapacity, about subsidies, about the geopolitical competition all over the world, particularly in the South China Sea, Taiwan. That is a dilemma somehow. You cooperate in trade, but you also are rivals and competitors. How does the European Union approach that dilemma?
Yeah, it's not even dual-edged sword for us. We have a triple-sided policy, which is China is, first of all, our competitor, our partner, and a systemic rival. Yes, it's a bit of schizophrenic, but from time it depends which one takes the lead or which one is more important than the other. I think that it was very clear understanding in last 4 to 5 years that Chinese competition is becoming less and less fair, and that we have to build up our trade defense instruments, which we did. And starting from 2 years probably back, we have already seen, commissions putting in place, more than 186, I think, right now is anti-dumping and anti-subsidy cases. 2/3 of those cases actually vis-a-vis China. We had a very complicated conversation because we don't use tariffs as the main economic policy tool. But last year we had a very difficult conversation about that, and for really not the first time, definitely not the first time, but it was maybe most substantial case when we have to put the tariffs on you see, electric vehicles of Chinese origin. We have a case on medical devices. It's more procurement instrument, so to make sure that they don't have access. There will be more cases coming. The most recent, couple of weeks ago. So we have the same level right now of tariffs on steel coming from China as United States does, 50%. The problem is we don't communicate in the way maybe we should actually position ourselves. But everything what is out of the outside of the so-called off the quota is right now under 50% of tariff. And so the economic part of assessment of the situation is really the same as in the United States. It's overcapacity, and sometimes it's even worse, because when the United States puts the tariffs, those goods should end somewhere, and the pressures on European market are really very high. So this was major discussion a couple of years ago. And now it actually results in one or another case or the action taken. We hopefully by the end of the year, or actually mid-December, we will finalize the review or investment screening instrument, and it will be. I think it will be then really more substantial tool to make sure that the investments in the strategic infrastructure or in strategic technologies is not done by our adversary. But now, when we had a EU-China summit in July, actually, I have to say, the main topic, one of the main topics was, of course, overcapacity and economic security, and non-fair treatment of Europeans. But actually, the main topic, the first topic on the agenda, was security, and China as a systemic rival for us because of its long-lasting and, in a way, strategic support for Russia to continue this war. Well, have we succeeded, as you see the results? Hopefully, next time.
Just a question about rare earth minerals. These export licenses have not just hit the United States, but also the European Union, intentionally or by implication. But what is being done about that? Because China has a virtual monopoly, at the moment at least, on the refinement of rare earth minerals. So how can the European Union come to a deal to avoid such a dilemma again?
Well, I think that we all kind of overlooked the problem, and this overlook started probably 20, 25 years ago, when we outsourced a lot of things. There are different reasons for that. There is no actually one answer in there for it. About the cheap labor, nobody wants to have a chemical factory next door. The subsidies, dumping, and the strategic investments of China around the world with the Silk Road Initiative. So there are different reasons for that. European Union as such is mostly importer. We don't mine too much because we don't have too much. There is a huge, but what we do, we actually had, and we are re-establishing our processing capacities, which, some of the technologies which China actually right now use, or, kind of a weaponized sometimes against us, comes either from us or from the United States. So it doesn't come from them. So how we can actually reboot our processing capabilities? This is one element. Another element. So this is what we work inside the EU and try to invest and incentivize in those projects. Another element is, in this problem, in this particular issue, on this particular issue, there is no way we can actually deal separately. This is really brilliant example where the EU, US, and plus, as we call, have to work together. You did a deal with Australia. U.S. did a deal with Australia, with some Indo-Pacific countries. I can tell you, in our deal with, we had signed a trade deal with Chile 2 years ago. Critical minerals is part. I'm sure people in the audience heard about Lobito Corridor, the infrastructure corridor in Africa, is actually about critical minerals as well. This is where we worked together. Our deal with Indonesia is actually not only about tariffs or pure trade, but about critical minerals. So we're doing right now, we are negotiating several deals with the other countries. Everywhere critical minerals processing is really the key. And, you know, we spend 20 billion a year in Western Hemisphere trying to invest not only in mining but as well processing in those countries, which works actually as development, not only as solving our problems.
Thank you. I get constantly asked if there were a conflict over Taiwan, God forbid, what would the European Union do? Do you have an answer?
Of course, we will. You know, as I said, anything what is happening in the world has an implication on and ripple effects on, you know, it's kind of how it's called, the butterfly effect, everywhere in the world. I think that it's in multiple statements at the leaders level said that we believe and we support the one China policy, but the security and our cooperation, our belief in security and the stabilization of the region, and our cooperation with Taiwan is there and will remain there. And you know, there are several European countries, members of the EU, who actually have ships in the Taiwan Strait from time to time when there is a need to support our Indo-Pacific partners and as well our American partners. There's only one answer to that, and Europe has this answer.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you one more question before we open it up to questions from the audience. The development within Europe about the rise of the far right is disconcerting in many countries, including in France, in Germany, even Britain outside the EU, but it's all not looking too good. What is the recipe? How can we fight it, at least to some extent, successfully? Because so far, no government in power seems to have had an answer.
Another softball question. I was like, no, I'm not coming not only to the next one, but the one after.
Well, I know you're a very capable ambassador. That's the reason why I ask all these easy questions.
Look, I think what is most important for us is to make sure that democracy works and deliver. I think this is what is extremely important for every citizen, be it in the EU, be it in some other European countries, be it in the in the United States. I think we probably have to prove, or our decisions and the implementation of these decisions should be proof of that. And this is the choice of the people. People choose if they go to vote. Everybody has an opinion to that, and they vote. And I think that we should actually not question how people vote in there. What we have to question is actually the policies elected politicians pursue or planning to pursue. And I think that unless we will, this is the thing what we want to move. We want more security, we want economic prosperity, we want our technologies to work for the sake of our people. Well, sometimes, in most of the times, it's always boils down to three major topics across the world. And if we will deliver, I think we will have no things to fear. And well, if the people choose so, we will work with the governments they have been chosen. That's why I said that it's very nice to be a career diplomat, because you work for the country, you work for your people, and not for the everyday or some kind of a daily changes.
Thank you for this diplomatic answer. Thank you. Yes, the lady there, please.
I think recently, to answer that, I don't know if this is right, recently in The Economist, they looked at a European country, I believe it was Denmark, in which the Social Democrats allowed 12% migration and did not have the rebellion that you have in other parts of Europe with the mass migration. I want to ask you another question, which is, the Russian energy reserves are fueling the conflict in Ukraine. It's also causing mass migration, because if you look at the map of the world, you've got the Tropic of Capricorn, the equator, and the Tropic of Cancer. And parts of the central part are becoming so overheated that people can't live there 12 months out of the year. And I would argue if you can't live there 12 months out of the year, you probably can't live there at all, because you'd have to migrate in and out. So,
what is the question, please?
Yeah. So I guess what I would ask is, if anybody has asked Rex Tillerson, the former chief of Exxon and a friend of Putin, how many reserves Russia has to continue to, oil reserves to continue to fund and fuel this war, because it's not just the...
Well, I'm sorry, we need questions. We cannot have these long statements. We are running out of time.
Okay.
So a quick question, otherwise I have to move on.
Okay, so the other thing is, political systems...
I'm sorry, we really can't go into that. Do you want to answer the Russian energy question?
Well, I have to admit I don't know from the top of my head how much of the reserves they have. What is very clear that in order, it's getting more and more expensive for Russia to export their gas and oil in a way, because they lack a technology. They had to close their, the fields which they were pumping oil in the north because of the lack of the technology or supplies for that. They had to turn their shipments to the shadow fleet, because legally you cannot ship it anymore. And I think that this, and if we will stick with our sanctions, and I'm sure we will, and then because I mentioned we legislated, the most important is actually right now to go after the money they get from selling this gas and oil. And I think that, well, we have to admit here, President Trump is right. You have to cut actually money flow to Russia to continue this war.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah. Yep.
Dean Peterson, retired foreign service. So I think you had mentioned that you do anything you can to support Ukraine. And a statement like that in most of history would involve active military support, an alliance that involves the military support. So my question is there a tripwire? What would it take for Europe to actually provide direct military support, the armies on the ground defending Ukraine?
Well, first of all, it will take NATO. The only way how, not only way, but one of the most probably clear pathways would be Ukraine in NATO, and then allies can provide direct military support. But look, European Union is the only international organization which is providing direct lethal support for Ukraine. So yes, amounts maybe not exceed expectations, which we would wish, because NATO it's not a NATO providing, it's NATO allies, different countries provide support. EU provides support as an organization. We actually step over our head in order to do that. I think that any other kind of support only possible with America or United States being in the lead. We have to do that together, and we have to had a really very honest conversation how the security guarantees for Ukraine will look like. If I would be, probably I would be somewhere else if I will have a very clear answer for you. What is the silver bullet and, what kind of the forces you have to be, where it should be positioned, where it should be a demilitarized zone, or should it be, other kind of conditionalities for that. But I'm here, so that means I don't have a silver bullet or the best one answer to that. But only possibility is actually to do it as a coalition.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yeah, the gentleman here.
My name is Brett Makins. I work for the Novo Nordisk Foundation. I'm the only U.S.-based person. I know it's not the top topic, but as you talk about technology, I'd be curious what the EU priorities in this more complicated space are in science and research cooperation with the U.S.
It's unbelievable. No, thank you, sir, for the question. Well, we had there's the cooperation in different fields are ongoing. We have a lot of scientists in the labs here. We have American scientists in Europe. European Commission just a few months ago launched the program actually to bring or to incentivize more exchange among scientists. We have a huge program of Marie Curie where we finance scientific exchange. But I think what was clear very much from this very popular Draghi report, which is quoted quite often in the United States, is that we have to invest in our own, not only industrial base, but as well in our own possibilities to finance innovation and to find strength actually to finalize our financial market integration so we can actually really mobilize money, not only public money, but as well private money to do that. So far, I think that we are on the right track. Hopefully, we will manage in a couple of years by simplifying rules, by creating right incentives. You know probably quite well that in 2027 we have to kickstart our 7-year financial plan, which is the 7-year budget for the EU. So I'm pretty sure that this time it would be not 90 billion, but much bigger sum for the investments into innovation and research cooperation.
Thank you. The ambassador has to leave any minute now. We have one final dramatic question. Katie.
Sure.
It has to be short and good and succinct.
Thank you so much for being here, Ambassador. It's a real pleasure. I'm Katie Shannon from the EU Center of Excellence here on campus. I'd like to ask about climate. We've touched on it. I'm curious about the conversations you're having in DC as the ambassador. Obviously, climate is critical to the EU. What you're doing is interwoven in all of your policies. Your interlocutors have changed. How are you approaching those conversations about emissions, mitigation, 50-55? Thank you.
Well, so it's not only because the topic is about transformation of transatlantic relations. I have to say that there is a transformation within the EU on the approach of how we see the Green Deal and our green policies, which the principles are still there, but the focus is on the Green Industrial Deal right now. How we actually make sure that the goals we put for ourselves, how we help industry to implement them. So, and this actually brings us closer to the maybe a bit more skeptical administration towards this issue. I have to say that I have encountered multiple conversations with the state legislators, governors on the state level, because when we speak climate, 2% decrease, increase, or we speak, the devastating droughts or devastating floods. It's like very theoretical, but if I'm going to see the governor of your state, you can imagine that when we speak about floods, we speak of very concrete consequences of the climate change. I can even open you a secret. Just 2 weeks ago, with the 20 EU ambassadors, we went to Florida. Do you know what was the topic, which was across the board? Different cities, different counties, mayors, the office of governor? The coastal erosion. For us, it's a green question, it's a climate issue. We put that question. But honestly, we don't need those big headlines. I think what is most important is actually to go and tackle the topic instead of discussing, are you right or wrong, defining it as a green or not green. The country the state which actually most advanced in the renewables is state of Texas. I think that, is it green or it's not? No. Because we all lack energy, and energy will be the key in developing different technologies. So it's all the above, if you wish, and now I will be dragged by my colleague.
Let me first thank you an awful lot for coming here. It has been a pleasure.